Welcome, Fright fans, to the horror show. I'm Jaime and Fuego.
I'm Cecil Laird, and we are back once again with another comics review, you guys. We haven't done this in a little bit, but we're
been a while.
Exactly. It was crazy getting through both the Halloween and the Christmas season, so things have slowed down a little bit. We're able to refocus on our comics reviews because, guys, there's tons of really awesome horror comic books all around. You can see the goodness, but today we're going to be focusing on two specifically, and the first of which is going to be mine, which is what you'd call a contemporary comic, because only I think 3, maybe 4 issues of it have come out at this point.
Handle that with care, sir.
Yes, that is Animosity.
Indeed, and the one that I'm going to be talking about first is, that's right, Aliens. And now, you've seen us do the first 3 volumes of the Dark Horse Aliens comics already, okay? And those were the ones that were like direct sequels to the second film, whereas this is actually intermingling stories that take place at different parts in the timeline that were all originally in black and white that Dark Horse did in their Dark Horse Presents book. And then what they did with this collection that came out after 1, 2, and 3 was they colored these and then they collected all of these little side stories together, which is what's so rad about this. And so it starts out with something called the theory of alien propagation, and this actually ties in directly with the very first comic book, Outbreak, I believe it was, that we read.
That was actually included in the trade too that we talked about.
Okay,
yes.
Sweet. And so this is about just the lifespan of the alien, how it goes from, the initial parasite to actually the impregnation, and it's pretty much structured just like a, doctor or scientist of sorts taking notes. There's no like real dialogue. It's all just, written stuff, and it shows how, I guess, ambitious Dark Horse was being with their storytelling at the time, because I know that you said that Mark Verheiden was the writer. His stuff was not kid stuff, man.
No.
It was not even close to it. And so it goes into a couple other side stories from there, which include the Advent and Terminus 2-parter, which is where a greedy filmmaker of sorts is going and investigating a pyramid where they think there might be alien life, and you find out very quickly that people were there before. The art in that one we'll eventually get to. It wasn't quite my favorite, but I know your personal fave was actually the third story, which was Reapers, and this was essentially, there's not a single bit of dialogue. There's no word bubbles, no thought bits, nothing whatsoever. It's told strictly through the visuals, and it's about this ginormous species of creatures that they pretty much eat alien eggs, I guess is the best way to describe it, but they do encounter an alien that is so ginormous because, they always change based on what they're sprouting from. It's kind of cool. And then the final story we have to mention, because it's a collection of a lot, is the one that directly ties in with Earth War, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, who knows? It was everything's been retitled in this stupid alien universe.
It was retitled Female War after Mr. David Fincher went and decided to retcon everything that was done in the comics afterwards and kill people, and so Dark Horse, naturally had to change things up.
But yes, this one called The Alien is basically a epilogue.
It's a gem.
It's an epilogue to the first 3 volumes of the Aliens comics, which we covered already.
And a fascinating one at that, man.
I loved it. I thought that was great. So
was that your
going
favorite?
through it, no, it's not my favorite. Reapers was my favorite, but it was definitely a close second.
That artist,
and that's
right?
because I love Simon Bisley, who I know you've seen before. He's done
artwork
and other things. It was written by John Arcudi, but the cool thing was, if you're going to sort of compare it to a more contemporary artist, then Ariel Olivetti is the one that you'd really compare him to. It's a painterly style, but very bold.
So. Yeah. Definitely not
defined
bright
lines, not muddy or anything like that, but still really cool looking, and I dig the hell out of it. And frankly, I've always been a fan of comics that can tell a full story without needing to use loads of dialogue, or in this case, any dialogue. That's why I really liked Reapers. Now,
that's the difference maybe of a writer's comic versus an artist comic, right?
Maybe, because I could have left, I could have given or taken the Advent Terminus 2-parter. I did not care. The art was garbage in that, and so I checked out.
Well, then maybe, as we're gonna, since this is Alien Year, guys, we have Alien Covenant coming in May. It was moved up from August, which is another reason why we're, covering this. But yeah, I have to say, a lot of the later stories, they have a similar tone to that. So I'm a little apprehensive about you reading some of the later stuff that Mark Verheiden did not write because
I've already bought into it.
Yes,
They're all right here.
He's got all the omnibuses here, so we are going to be covering them eventually for you guys. And yeah, Stronghold is the next one that we're going to be going through, and that one is a little shoddier on the storytelling, perhaps. Ultra violent. I honestly feel like this series, after a while, moved away from the Verheiden smarts that were initially implemented, because we even agreed that those tales felt like they got a little dumber and more rudimentary over the volumes and stuff, and it was much more so about the gore-tastic visuals in contrast with the storytelling. But this is maybe that last flickery sign of actually accomplishing what they had initially intended to before things changed. So
I agree.
Nice. So what do you got, man?
So that's going to bring us to Animosity. Now this one is a
valuable
independent book, and not only that, but yeah, Fuego brings it up. This is the first printing of this book, which was put out by Aftershock.
They're up to 7 or 8 now?
No, they're only up to like 4, I think, at this point. I have up to 3. I have number 2 somewhere, but this is number 3 right here.
On the first issue.
No, yeah, they're up to
ridiculous...
I think they're up to the 6th printing at this point.
Yeah, crazy, right? Shows the popularity.
Yeah, and so there's a reason for it, because it was frankly a really interesting premise, and that is, it starts off, the first few pages familiarize yourself with a couple of characters. Specifically, you get to meet a little girl by the name of Jessie and her dog Sandor.
Yep.
You see a bunch of other characters as well, and what happens is, on 2 splash pages in a row, as a matter of fact, there's something called, what the comic calls, the wake happens. And that is at the very same moment, and they display this by having, I think it's a grand total of 12 panels, because it's 6 per page, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a lot to soak in, but it's cool.
Yeah, and every box, every sub-panel of those pages, or every panel of those pages, is a different animal-human interaction, or animal-animal interaction. There's an animal somewhere in the panel, and what we're seeing is basically the wake, which is, at the very same moment, every animal on the planet becomes sentient. And I mean, they're already sentient, but becomes intelligently sentient and aware of themselves. They can talk.
In layman's terms, they can all finally talk.
Yeah, they all gain the ability of speech, and it's really interesting. Well, no, it's not just the ability to talk, though. Some gain self-awareness, because there's one of the panels is a bear that's eating a fish, and it's like eating, and then when it wakes, its eyes change, and its eyes get bigger, and it says, "What have I done?"
You're actually taking it deeper than I even initially, when I was reading the comic,
Oh,
realized.
really?
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that they could talk, I just felt like it was almost like a little evolutionary click or something, like a switch being flipped on, but the aspect of recognition and rationalizing, I didn't even necessarily take into account initially.
Well, and that's what's interesting,
cool.
because while the first issue focuses on the wake and what happens post the wake, because essentially what it triggers is...
I thought they were always observant, though, because some of the things they were referencing were like they were watching the boyfriend or the girlfriend.
No, that's the thing. There was
so they could finally vocalize
one of the panels was a cat that had in the middle of the night creeped up on a man sleeping next to a woman. And when when the wake happens, it basically says, if you touch another hair on her head, I'll kill you.
Yeah, so they've been observant, they've been watching,
exactly.
They've been cognizant, maybe,
well, that's
but they
true.
can finally
Some of
vocalize
them,
it.
but cats have always been considered to be really smart. So I think the animal's natural level of intelligence had something to do with how, what happened post
Because they don't
the
really
wake.
explain it, do they?
No, they don't. Not
happens.
so far. I mean, again, it's only 4 issues into the actual series, so that's another reason why I wanted to bring it up. You guys can still jump on board. I mean, the first trade hasn't even come out yet, so...
Well, to be fair, in 150-plus issues, they haven't explained what happened in The Walking Dead.
Well, that too. But essentially, we circle back to Jessie and Sandor, and what happens is, as a result of all... And keep in mind... They do a breakdown at the very beginning of population, and they say human population is this as compared to the numbers of the different animals. And what happens is a lot of animals are very unhappy with the way they've been treated by humans. And so essentially what this triggers is an animal apocalypse. And they don't really touch on it I mean, they just barely start to scratch the surface in this first issue where Jessie and Sandor have to escape because animals have turned on humans and they're killing humans. So Sandor loves Jessie. He wants to watch over her and keep her safe. But, you know, by the third issue, you see just the cover here, and I'll drop in some of the art, but the animals have formed an army. They I forgot what they call it. I'll drop it in the editing too, the term for it, but it's like an animal army, and they're brokering a peace with the humans. It gets so much deeper and more political. That's the one thing you have to expect about it, is the first issue, it sets something up and you're like, oh, this is going to be great, but almost immediately in the second issue, things turn and they do a time jump.
Can I say that I'm sensing some similarities to the recent prequels of the Planet of the Apes?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's a fair comparison. But nonetheless, it's an excellent book. I'm not going to drone on and on about it, except to say that the artwork is really good and effective.
Yes.
The writing is interesting, and the concept is great.
Dude, and I loved it. We're going to talk about how in that one Alien story where they were conveying the story without talking, they did that very well in the first issue, because I haven't read the second or the third one, but he had me read the first issue specifically for this review, guys. And in all those panels, there often wasn't dialogue. It was like the animalistic reaction to that sentient change, and, you know, people in zoos that are getting attacked by the animals that they cared for or mistreated. So that's where it's often, animals are probably a byproduct in a lot of ways. I mean, as a cat owner, as a dog owner myself, you know that it's the nature versus nurture, and how you treat them and what you put in is what you get back often. And yeah, that it was just very cool as an animal lover to see just this crazy scenario panning out, man.
Yeah, and as much as I was a little sour on the seeming change in direction in the second
Which
issue,
you mentioned you had some
I did, but when I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, the title right up front is saying Animosity. Like, it seems like there's going to be something there.
By the way.
So, you know, I still love the series. I'm going to continue with it, and I'm probably going to get this one slabbed.
Who's the publisher again?
The publisher is Aftershock. It was written by Marguerite Bennett and art by Rafael de la Torre. I should definitely shout them out, because excellent work. Check it out. It's amazing. So thank you guys very much for watching. That's going to do it for this week's comics review. We're going to try and get back to doing it at least or tri-weekly if possible.
Yeah.
So thanks very much. Join us back for the next comics review, and let us know in the comments below if you've read either these Alien stories or Animosity, or if you think you're going to try and pick them up now that we've enlightened you to them.
Yeah, or also if there's a horror title that we haven't mentioned that you think we should check out, please do. We may have seen it already, but if not, we'd love to be enlightened by you guys.
Thanks again for watching. I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.
And like, share, and subscribe.